Now then, how are you doing? Today I want to talk about something very close to my heart. Puddles. I love puddles, me. Puddles give us an excuse to take colours from the top half of the painting and disperse them around the bottom half of the painting. Very useful device. Enjoy. I'm going to start by drawing out my scene using a 2B pencil. The paper I'm drawing onto is Saunders Waterford 200 pounds rough. For my composition, I've chosen a typical Dale scene, complete with barn and a couple of dry stone walls. I'm happy with my composition, so I'm going to proceed by laying down a wet in wet wash for the sky. This means wetting the paper thoroughly and then mixing up the first of my colours, cadmium yellow. By its very nature, a wet in wet wash is unpredictable. Well, all we can hope to do is throw colours together and hope that they'll fuse together in an interesting and aesthetically pleasing way. After the cadmium yellow comes cadmium red. It's important for the colours to be well balanced. By that I mean that no colour should be too dominant. They should sit comfortably together on the paper. Finally, I'm going to add a little French ultramarine. Again, care must be taken not to overdo it. The board is set at a slight angle, so the three colours should blend together nicely. The mood is now set. The wet in wet wash sets the mood, but the area it covers is confined to the top left-hand quadrant of the paper. One way I can make those colours go a little further is to introduce some puddles. Once I've drawn them out, I simply reapply the colours I used in the initial wash, only this time I'll reverse their order. I'm painting wet onto dry now, but I'm working fast so that the paint blends together. In watercolour, speed and timing is everything. Well, almost everything. This is an evening light and the sun has almost set, which means the foreground will be in semi-darkness. Well, this is a great time of day for the artist, when objects are reduced to their simplest forms and details are at a minimum. I've added burnt umber to the French ultramarine to create a blue-grey, which I'm going to apply to the whole of the foreground area. The only thing I have to take extra care over is in painting around my puddles. Paint over them and I'm in big trouble. Even at this early stage, the puddles are making an impact. This comes from the strong contrast between light and dark tones, something we should be looking out for at all times in all our paintings. I've mixed up some rich burnt umber, which I'm going to use to paint in the road. What you'll probably notice at this point is how much lighter the previous wash now looks. Well, everything looks lighter once it's dried than when you first apply it. Tone is also relative though. The burnt umber I've applied is quite strong. When placed alongside the previous wash, it makes the blue-grey seem lighter in comparison. So I'm using the dark tone to explain a few details in the walls. I'm also using it to define the top edge of the right-hand wall, an example of negative painting. The wall appears not because I painted it directly, but because I've painted around it. In a stone wall like this, there should be a whole range of varying tones, giving the stones the illusion of depth, with the darkest tones, which I've mixed from French ultramarine and burnt umber, suggesting the darkest spaces between the stones. The most important thing with a wall like this, though, is that you should try to avoid creating repetitive patterns or shapes that are too geometric in appearance. It's all coming together nicely now. Applying the dark tone along the edge of the roof and softening it off with a damp brush helps to create a believable overhang. Again, I'm applying some of the darkest tones to the wall. Don't overdo this though, less is more. Puddles accumulate in potholes in the road. To give the illusion of depth, therefore, it's often a good idea to apply the dark tone along some of its edges. I say some because it's important not to outline the whole of the puddle. That would just look daft, not very convincing at all. I tend to restrict the lines to just those edges that are facing us. A similar effect can be applied to the random smattering of rocks and stones in the centre of the road. To maintain the random look, it's a good idea to soften parts of these off with a damp brush. Well now, it's all very well creating puddles, but puddles means water. And water means reflections. The left-hand wall, and barn in particular, will be creating reflections that I simply can't ignore. I don't want them to be anything too ambitious. Just a simplified inversion of their shapes will do the job. To reduce their prominence, I've used a light, weak mix of French ultramarine and burnt umber. The doorway of the barn should also reflect directly below itself. One of the first and most important rules of reflection, in fact. I think I've almost done. There's just one little thing I want to add to finish it all off. A couple of figures. If you're going to add simple figures like this, then it's a good idea to think carrots. I'm using a mix of the cadmium yellow and cadmium red, because I think it would be rather nice to suggest that the tired walkers are catching a few of those last rays of sunlight, pausing perhaps before dropping down the hill to the pub. Dropping some of the blue-grey mix into the figure while it's still damp helps to give a bit of variation. Also, don't forget its reflection. These carrots have a rucksack on their back. Even carrots need exercise, you know. The carrot shape is a good starting point. It can help to give a figure a sense of movement and posture. Once that's established, it's easy to bolt on a few extra limbs and fashion accessories. So the next time you want to give your painting a little bit of a lift and you want to disperse some of those colours from the sky into the rest of the painting, look no further than Puddles. So Give it your best shot, and I'll see you next time.